And welcome back to another week of Atheists on Air Beyond the Trailer Park. Missed everybody this week. Glad to be back. And of course, always, we have my fabulous co-host Beth with us. How's it going, Beth?
Howdy, howdy, howdy. It's going well.
You're not frozen in Pennsylvania yet?
No, we got a little, well, they were calling for 8 inches, so we got our 3.
3. we got
maybe
about 1.5 feet, but you know, it's Canada.
Oh.
So
well,
this,
we're in a valley, so.
Yeah,
we're in a valley, so yeah.
No, we get the edge of the lake effect crap. We don't quite get, you know, like Shujin and Buffalo, but we're not so good either. Poor Shujin. So this week, folks, we are happy to welcome our guest, the Liberace of the Internet, Mr. Mike Phelps, the NeoAtheist. Hello.
Actually, that's a Liberace of YouTube. I can't claim the entire interwebs until it is official. I think that's got to be a presidential nomination to be the Liberace of the interwebs. I think Liberace has that title too.
Well, he was kind of gone before that, but if he was around during, you know, the internet, I'm sure he would have been everywhere.
That's kind of a scary thought.
He would have. Could you imagine? You're welcome. You got a promotion. So Mike is the host of The Age of Reason, and he is also the vice president of SecularTv, with both things that we would like to talk about this evening. So, Mike, good to have you here. You're a busy man these days, huh?
I like to think that I am a man that wears many fedoras. That's the way that I like to think about it. But when it comes down to it, I'm just your everyday atheist that hosts a podcast and is trying to find new content creators for this little pet project known as SecularTv.
Yeah, it's quite the little pet project you've got going because, you know, as people may have noticed, you kind of snagged us up in your hurricane of creativity there.
What can I say? I've become the Don of YouTube when it comes down to it.
The Don and the Liberace. There you go.
Like I said, many hats, many hats.
So why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit about SecularTv, where it came from, how did you guys get going, and what's happening?
Well, that's it. The idea for secular, mutually creative difference-based separation from atheist analysis. With that being the case, we had a lot of ideas, a lot of pet projects that we were sort of trying to suggest to the upper management of atheist analysis. A lot of that wasn't happening. With that being the case, we decided to, once The Age of Reason left SecularTv, it needed a new home. We were going to set up a separate channel for The Age of Reason, but we decided that SecularTv would be a better route to take because there's other shows that we wanted to sort of give life to and to help sort of come into its own. So with that being the case, the next logical move seemed like creating our own network called SecularTv would be the best way to go, where free speech is taken seriously. Now, the driving force behind SecularTv itself is that the goal of SecularTv is to help promote unique and interesting content while focusing on a variety of diverse ideas that appeal to various groups in the secular community. In short, our goal is to help provide a springboard for producers, assisting in the production of quality secular shows without dictating or delegating or censoring that content, as long as it agrees with the YouTube terms and conditions and Google's terms and conditions. We're basically up for almost anything.
Yeah, because that's a challenge, for some people that are running that kind of thing, is the feeling that they've got to kind of have a hand in what everybody's doing. And the nice thing is you guys are kind of your show, your shit, you do whatever the hell you want, just don't break any rules, which is kind of refreshing.
Which is actually a nice feature of secular TV. It's something that has come into its own. We are one of the only networks on YouTube or on the interwebs in general outside of Atheist TV that's actually producing daily content. We have, on average, 2 to 3 shows going on each day, Monday through Sunday, Sunday through Saturday. Got my weeks confused there. But yeah, that seems to be the driving force, and it has taken on a life of its own. I love everything that's going on with it. I mean, we're less than 8 weeks old, and we have over 560 subscribers. This project's growing bigger than me or Randy thought it would, and we're enjoying every minute of it.
That's awesome. By the way, you should probably tell folks who Randy is.
Randy's the Foxhole Atheist. He's sort of my counterpart. He's the president of Secular TV and the brains behind the operation. I mean, if there was a yin to my yang, if there was another half to this relationship, that would be Randy Bevan, this Foxhole Atheist. The other person that is the driving force and has as much passion for this project as I do itself. Every move he makes is inspirational and inspiring to watch.
Yeah, you guys really put a lot of passion into the project, I think, and I think that's really important to making it a success, and probably why it's grown a little quicker than you maybe thought it would, because, I mean, you guys are out there day in and day out, you know, not only looking for new content, but supporting the people that you already have working with you.
Very true. Not to mention, we're always open to new content creators. We have plans for, once we hit 50 content contributors, because that's the max you can have on one channel, we're actually going to be branching off into sub-demographics and sort of going from there. We've got a few contests in the works for that I can't sort of bring to the table yet, but we've got other things that are going on for promotional purposes. Randy's basically bankrolling everything himself right now. Once everything starts to get off the ground, though, we're going to sort of be filing as a 501-C3 nonprofit organization on the educational stance. Because at the end of the day, we're trying to educate content contributors and content creators to be the best host of their show that they can be. And we have a vast array of knowledge. I've been doing this for close to 4 to 5 years. Randy's been doing it in one way or another for close to 3 to 4 years. We have a lot of knowledge that we can help bring upon people and help them create content. And we're just sort of tapping into that to help wherever we can on the net.
Well, and that's the cool thing, too, is it's one thing to kind of corral a lot of shows and hosts together, but you're offering the ability to learn and grow and polish the shows and like learning how to do better graphics and learning how to do just better things in that we maybe don't know how to do, and it's not your average kind of thing, you know. It's, as I say, a lot of places are just going to like, well, we're going to corral a lot of people together, we're going to be under one banner, we're going to promote ourselves, which is great, but that extra step of, well, oh, you don't know how to do that? Well, so-and-so over here knows how to do it, let's put you two together and help each other. And that's the kind of community sense I think is really important.
And that's where a lot of the leadership for Secular TV comes into play. Me and Randy may be the face behind the project itself, but we have a lot of people that are driving forces and that have as much passion as me and Randy, if not more. I mean, Dwayne is another example. The graphic stuff that he does with GIMP and Photoshop is immaculate. I mean, that's where this little guy down here came from. You have that. You have John Gleason, the Godless Engineer, that hosts his own show, that's working on the websites. We have a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that a lot of the leadership help with. And that's something that is a great beneficial thing to have towards a project like this that we're only as strong as the people that are the content creators and the content contributors to help a project like this at the end of the day. So it's good to know that we have a great team helping with that on a day-to-day basis.
And that's the great thing too, is taking everybody's skills and everybody's abilities and sharing those amongst each other. So if somebody is really good with graphics, they can contribute that. If somebody's better at music, they can contribute that. If somebody is good at just managing things on the back end, they're good at that too. And it's a nice interconnectivity, sort of a symbiosis, I guess.
Yes, and that's something that we enjoy about this project. Myself, one of the things I enjoy doing is looking at new content creators, watching atheist videos on a day-to-day basis, and sort of coming up with concepts that fit the individuals that we're approaching. Secular Parenting, that show, The Secular Parent, is a great example of something that sort of came into its own. Once we found the host for the show, we were there in advisory capacity, but that show took on a life of its own. And the host of that show are the driving force behind it. I mean, if a guest falls out at the last minute, me and Randy are always here to help. But that show has become autonomous. I mean, Karen has been making trailers for it. Beasia and Karen are both bloggers for that topic. And, I mean, Beasia, Secular Parent, wrote the book on the topic. So having those two as the driving force behind that is something that's an amazing inspiration for Secular TV itself. And just being able to see projects like that on a day-to-day basis gives me hope for the project and makes it to where I'm glad I've put as much into it as I have.
Well, and topics like secular parenting are really important today, because there are a lot of people who, as being an atheist is more acceptable and people are more comfortable with it, there's going to be more and more people that are becoming parents and they want to kind of figure out, well, how do I raise children as a secular person? Because I know a lot of people are worried about indoctrinating their kids as an atheist, just the same as when they were religious. So having a show like that they can watch and discuss ideas and learn from is really important too. And it's not your typical atheist show fare, you know.
Very true, and that's something that we sort of pride ourselves on. We have a diverse amount of stuff on the network, and that's on a day-to-day basis. I mean, the satire stuff coming out of Pastor Jay, out of Brother Cornelio, and just the interactions between John Gleason and Pastor Jay are something that I pride myself on. I love seeing that type of content, and it's just waking up each day not knowing what the heck's going to be coming out of Pastor Jay, not knowing what's going to be coming out of Leo, or just the amazing content coming on a day-to-day basis. It's something that's been quite rewarding, having a hand in creating something of this.
And that's a unique thing too that I think has come out of internet networks, is this idea that a show doesn't have to be a set block of time, like what Pastor Jay, he's throwing out a tidbit here, a tidbit there, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this block of half an hour or whatever, and it can be this sort of spontaneous interaction that, like you say, you never know what's going to happen next. And I think that's a unique development that's come out of internet entertainment, is that kind of avant-garde idea. And
very true.
Yeah. It's hilarious, to think of all of this fun satire stuff. And then you've got, was it the Rambling Tangent show?
Don't even get me started on Casey, Dwayne, and Clarky Clark. I mean, Clarky is one of the most intellectually driven people you'll ever meet. And then just the comedy that comes out of the interactions between him and Dwayne is just I crack up every time I even see a clip of that. Not to mention there's an interesting story behind the Rambling Tangent too. They were actually one of the first live content to come over to the network. I think they were the third content creators to join the team. Casey and Clark were having sort of a problem with being able to do the content on the day and time that they were accustomed to. So D-Wayne was introduced into that situation. And he works at the same place that Clarky Clark does. He lives less than 45 minutes from Clarky Clark. And just the interactions, it was instant gold. I mean, it was pretty interesting. I like everything that's coming out of it. Just that we were able to connect to people in a local community, and that they're content creators, not to mention the role that D-Wayne's developed into on the network. He's instrumental in the day-to-day actions of SecularTv itself.
Yeah. No, they're a lot of fun. And then you've got another one that I find is a unique idea is Tom Leeds' show, where he's talking to theists on every show and asking them, well, what do you think about atheists? And I think that's a neat angle too, because a lot of the time, you know, we're all coming out of religion, and a lot of us go through that angry phase, or we've got family members that are in our face and things like that. But it's interesting to sit down and listen to a theist who has no dog in the fight, so to speak, that they're just, this is how I think, and that's an interesting perspective as well that we don't normally see.
That is an interesting perspective, not to mention the way that Tom's going about that. There's very few people that could pull off a show like that and make it the success that Tom has with that. I mean, to be a bipartisan person when talking to theists, he's a better man than I. I couldn't do it.
Me neither.
Nope. We touch it.
And I mean, I saw he was he's on my Google Plus, and he was, you know, sending out messages to known theists, and he was, you know, hey, Matt Slick, would you like to be on my show? And I'm like, I couldn't. But then Slick irritates me like a lot. So, but yeah, you're right.
Matt Slick irritates me ever since I talked to his daughter. I've got all the respect in the world for Rachel Slick, but Matt Slick is just, I bang my head up against the wall every time I see that guy talk. That's what lies there. I mean, yeah, there's just so many. It's like talking to a brick wall, but a brick wall at least serves a purpose because it's a wall.
Yeah. Ooh, that's a good point. And do we have, like, speaking of Slick, who likes to quote debate, do we have debate shows, or is that something we're working on, or how are we with that?
We are actually in the process of creating something like that. We actually have the Secular Markets premiering this Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, and that's going to be a conversation between Steve Shives and Venom Fang X. Ooh. And the person that's going to be hosting the first episode of that is going to be Shayro.
Excellent, excellent. Because, I mean, you see a lot of debates on YouTube, but I think there's always going to be a place for that. I mean, personally, I love a good debate, and I like watching a debate so that I can learn from it and, you know, do better next time I have occasion to tangle with somebody. So that's my perspective, and a lot of people,
you seek it out.
What?
Yeah, you seek it out, my friend, but yeah,
I haven't had any good Twitter tangles lately, man. I don't know. I think they're all scared of me now.
Twitter gets even worse when you get up there in the past 2,000 followers. I swear, the people that come out of the woodworks, not to mention with my persona being the NeoAtheist, you would not believe the trouble I get myself into.
Well, I've just got past 1,000 followers now, and like I'm
I haven't even hit 200.
But you admit you don't do Twitter hardly.
No, yeah. Well, I don't understand it. I have trouble with it.
Well, I've actually kind of been neglecting it a little bit, but I have my Facebook gets piped through it, so I am technically constantly posting on there, and I've become cognizant enough that when I'm posting something on Facebook and I'm like, oh, that's going to go on Twitter, so I'll like throw in a Twitter handle so that it gets tagged over there too, sort of working the system kind of thing. But yeah, I
see what what I have trouble with Twitter is that you only have 144 characters. Now, you know my blog post. You know my blog post, like the one I'm working on now, which is over 7,000 words.
Beth makes 500 Twitter tweets for a point.
Yeah. I'm just not that concise.
What I found, because I used to, back in the old days, I used to do a lot of debating in an old Yahoo group. Excuse me, that was actually run by Fundies. And of course that was all, I did my posting via email, so I mean that was unlimited. And what I found with moving to Twitter is I really had to hone my arguments down. Now I have been guilty of doing multiple tweet arguments, but I don't think I've ever gone beyond 3 in one point, so... You know, it's definitely an acquired skill, and I'm certainly not perfect at it by any stretch. But yeah, I haven't had any good Twitter debates. The best one I've had lately is that Muslim guy on my Facebook who's been trying to convert me with all his little Muslim friends.
I could see that happening. I mean, you do come across as someone that would probably be taken in by the Muslim agenda, I guess.
I mean, they keep telling me how, you know, Islam loves science, and, you know, Islam's the only religion that tells you how to be good to people, and, yeah, I don't need that.
Yeah, that's why they just burned a Jordanian pilot to death in a cage.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, well, these are the different Muslims, but, well, when I do my logical...
Oh, these are the true Muslims.
Yeah. No, well, don't go. Let's not go all Ben Affleck now. I actually quote this in my logical fallacy this week. But one of my favorite quotes from Ali Rizvi's speech last year was when he talked about it being an afflectation. Love it.
Epic.
Mike, where do you see, like, with debates? Do you personally, is that something that you'd like to see more of? Not necessarily on Secular TV per se, but in general, or is it something that you think is a quote waste of time? You know, you're basically each side's preaching to the choir. What's your stand on the debating?
Well, I think that any conversation that's intellectually driven, it holds a purpose in some way, shape, and or form. You're not only doing it for the person that you're debating or trying to bang your head up against a wall with, there's always that random chance that there's that one person that's on the fence that could be swayed with that conversation. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've talked to a lot of fundies over the last 4 years. I've had conversations with Venom Fang X. I've had conversations with Bible Thumping Wingnuts. I've had conversations with Bible Thumping Wingnut, Rand Cam Campbell, and Raw Apologetics all in the same conversation. And you also have Ravenwolf, Bruce Stigate, on that conversation too, while I had Redline and Bionic Dance in there too. I mean, I've got something against an atheist that thinks that all rocks are atheist. I mean, if you're going to toss a term like atheist and inanimate object, I'm sorry, but take those rocks and do something with them, are my thoughts.
Yeah, that comes back to the whole, you know, to me, you have to be able to be capable of understanding a concept before you can reject the concept.
Mm-hmm. Very true. But debate itself can serve a purpose. Not only can it be entertaining, but it can actually be something that helps educate the masses out of ignorance. Because as the host of The Age of Reason, there's my little self-promotion, selfless plug. But as the host of The Age of Reason, how can I actually not be for anything that helps spread reason and logical discussion, and still consider myself a reasonable host of a show like The Age of Reason that basically has at its core fundamental values the basic fundamental principles of Thomas Paine works and The Age of Reason itself? I mean, that's something that I have to take into account when looking at situations like that.
Well, and I'm with you. Like, I'm one of the, I don't know, I've been told that I'm patient. I don't know. But I will put up with the absolute stonewall, wingnut type ridiculous person, and I will go hours with them. I don't care, because for me it is absolutely about the audience, and I always learn stuff. And to me, it's, even if I spend a 3-day Twitter debate with somebody and I know bloody well I'm never going to change their mind, I'm still honing my arguments against their bullshit and learning how to better address those, as well as providing that information out there for anyone else. And I have actually had people come, address me privately after a Twitter exchange and say, hey, I didn't know that, or I thought that was interesting, or can you tell me more, and that kind of thing. So that's what it's about for me. And every time I get somebody who's like, well, I don't know why you waste your time, that person's never going to change. I'm like, I knew that going in, but I get a kick out of it. And for me, the more batshit they are, the more I like it. I was telling some people, the Yahoo group I used to belong to, I mean, those were some serious nut jobs in there. And, of course, invariably, their kind and loving Christian natures would cause them to horrifically insult me on a daily basis. So what I would do is, because it was email-based, I had a signature file. So every single insult that I got, I would add it to my signature file. And it was like 3 or 4 lines long after a year or so. And it was just like, I'm trying to remember, it was like dumb idiot, slut, whore, bitch, you name it. And I was like, woohoo, there's another one for my sig file. Thanks, guys. And they hated it. They hated it. And it was so priceless. So I don't care how, crazy, ridiculous they are. I'm like, keep it coming, man. I love it. But I'm just weird that way.
I'll leave it to you and one of our other mutual friends.
Yes.
I think part of my problem is because with my blogging, it takes up so much of my time. I just don't have the patience for it. And I jokingly say, like, for me, because of my background, apologetics to me is just the most asinine thing.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and I said that in my college class on apologetics and promptly got thrown out 2 weeks later. Oops. But twice. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's, I think that's right around the same time I first read Age of Reason, too, because I was taking my philosophy classes then, too. Yeah. But it's just, I'll let you do it.
Well, and actually, I'm glad.
But I do agree. It's necessary.
I'm glad you brought that up about Age of Reason, because as you probably know, Mike, I'm in, as a friend of ours calls it, Canuckistan up here. And I never actually read Thomas Paine or The Age of Reason, knew nothing about it other than he was, like, I think he's a founding father, isn't he?
No? Yes, he's actually... It's thought that he helped with the original draft of the Declaration of Independence.
I thought he was in there, yeah.
Yeah, he was actually a friend and mentor to Thomas Jefferson.
Now, I have been to Monticello twice, and I've been to the one down this road, Monroe's house. I was there a couple of years ago too. So those guys I kind of know, but Thomas Paine, nothing. So our of course, as you know, our good friend Dave Foda is nuts about Thomas Paine, and he showed me where to get to download Age of Reason, and I started reading this, and I was floored because I'm a history nerd, and I love anything old like that. I'm fairly cognizant about 18th century lifestyles and you know, the colonial era and things like that, but just to hear or read somebody from that era write those things, I was absolutely floored. So I can completely see why you guys are enamored with the guy and his writing.
Well, see, Dave is a huge fan of the Age of Reason, the show itself. And it got to the point of where I was kind of... Because him and Randy are both huge advocates for Thomas Paine, as I am too, but Randy's been wanting to do a Thomas Paine episode of the Age of Reason since he came on board, since episode 2. So I've been sort of having to work that in, and Dave's going to be instrumental towards that show. Not to mention, I'm probably just going to sit back and listen to Randy and Dave talk about it, because the interaction between those two is probably going to be amazing and epic in monumental proportion.
Oh, he's been talking about that episode for like a couple of months already.
I have always strenuously supported the right of every man to his own opinion, however different that opinion might be to mine. He who also denies to another this right makes a slave of himself to his present opinion, because he precludes himself the right to changing it. That was his first paragraph.
Wow.
That's when I got hooked.
Anyone that knows me or follows anything that I sort of do knows that what my favorite quote from Thomas Paine in The Age of Reason actually is, which is, "The most formidable weapon against heirs of any kind is reason. I have never used simple, elegant at its core.
Yeah.
It's something that is the driving motto and the driving force behind how I deal with the tyranny known as religion."
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was so refreshing to see that. Like I told Dave, I was like, you could have picked my jaw up off. I mean, you told me it was good, but damn. Like, you know, that mentality of that era was, they were not very far removed from, you know, let's burn the witches kind of mentality, and to have somebody have the balls to step up and say, I don't think that there's a God, is just, like, wow. So, yeah, I can totally see why you guys are, and I wish they did make us read Thomas Paine up here, but, I guess there's only so much time. But, and I took American history, but again, it was more, the timeline of this happened this time and this happened here and that sort of thing. So,
well, I don't think people realize, W, you're the same age I am, is that even coming in the U.S. school system, it was glossed over, but I don't think really he came into his works, as far as their importance, didn't really hit until about early 1990s. And that's right around the time where the SOCUS issues started taking off, the separation of church and state. And because I know it was right after college when I started paying a little bit more attention to it.
Right. And I guess it makes sense that we wouldn't get into it because, number one, we actually don't officially have any kind of codified separation. And secondly, we don't because it's not really been an issue. I mean, we had prayer in school when I was in grade school in the 70s, but that was gotten rid of by high school, and it wasn't like in the States were like, oh my God, they're taking prayer to school. I was like, we're not going to pray in school anymore because that's not fair. Oh, okay. And that was it, you know.
Yeah, see, for us, that was Madalyn Murray O'Hair, you know. That was her between the early 70s, because I remember in 1970 we were still praying in school. I mean, I was only 6 years old then, and by 74 it was gone.
See, it was later here because I think it was early to mid 80s. No, it would have been mid 80s because we were still praying in grade 9 in high school.
Yeah, see.
Yeah, and that was just like the Lord's Prayer, and I really remember it in grade school because we had a couple of Jehovah's Witnesses, and it was this big every morning. It was like, oh, the Jehovies have to go stand out in the hall again, you know, because we had the national anthem at the same time, so they all had to go stand in the hall. So. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this week's creation moment, and when we come back, I think we will get into a little bit more of just who Mike is as a person, where's he come from, and all that kind of fun stuff. So let's see what crazy shit our creation moments folk have this week.
Behold, the atheist's nightmare. Your well-made banana is just the right shape for the human mouth. Chewy, easy to digest, and it's even curved toward the face to make the whole process so much easier.
I choose to believe that the earth is young. When we do that, when we understand that creation is the truth, then we understand where all of our doctrine comes from as well.
I just want to let you know that there actually is a book out there that actually tells us where matter came from. Bill, I do want to say that there is a book out there.
So next time you hear on television somebody say millions of years ago, what's the question we're going to ask them? Were you there? Were you there? Call them up on the telephone and say, excuse me, Mr. TV man, were you there? Only way we could know what happened in the past if someone was there to tell us. That's right, dinosaurs live beside people. And of course you'll have an evolutionist who'll say, that's not right, dinosaurs lived millions of years ago. What do you ask them? Were you there?
Hello and welcome to this week's Creation Moment, a little slice of creation silliness I get in my email every day, and I'd like to share it with you so that we can all get a taste of just how crazy creation shit is. On this week's Creation Moment, we're going to learn about whales. Let's see what Ian Taylor has to say this week.
Whales pose some interesting problems to those who believe that all living things evolved slowly to their present forms over millions of years. According to evolution, sea creatures gradually adapted to life on land because they could make a better living there. That's where mammals supposedly evolved. Then, for some unknown reason, some of the mammals, Darwin said it was the bear, decided to return to the sea. This required that the mammal ancestors of the whales lose their legs, readapt to locomotion in water, develop new vision abilities, and move its breathing nostrils to behind its brain.
Wow. They make it sound like animals were just randomly deciding they wanted to move to land or water willy-nilly. No. Animals adapted to their habitat. So if an area became more aquatic, the animals became more aquatic, and vice versa. And Darwin didn't say it was the bear. He used the bear as an example of how and why a land mammal may have become more adapted to an aquatic lifestyle. In Darwin's time, the black bear had been seen swimming around for hours with their mouths open, scooping up waterborne insects to eat. He theorized that if the insect food supply had been adequate enough, those bears could have begun to evolve to better suit an aquatic lifestyle and eventually become something akin to a whale. Big difference! I love how these guys love to twist facts.
As unlikely as all this sounds, some evolutionists make one more amazing claim. They claim that some whales still have the vestigial organs of their pelvis or legs embedded in their bodies. Some have even claimed that certain whales have been seen that still had the vestigial legs growing out of their bodies. However, no trace of these so-called legs can be found in any of the scientific literature.
Okay, first of all, quote, evolutionists aren't claiming anything. Fishermen have been finding whales and dolphins with vestigial hind legs for at least a century, with one being photographed as early as 1919. Other examples have been studied and verified in the decades since then. I don't think whalers would allow an evolutionist to hang out on their ships indefinitely just so they could claim to have found legs on a whale. Really. Stating that nothing has been found about these finds in, quote, scientific literature is a total bullshit lie, too. Where do you think I found this information? Here's a tip, Mr. Taylor. 5 seconds of Google will do you good. Nice try, creationists.
The small bone that some whales have is not a vestigial pelvis. It is not even attached to the backbone or any other part of the skeleton, but is situated within the body as an anchor for some of the whale's organs. In short, any talk of whales with legs or vestigial walking structures is just pure myth. God created the whales as the Bible says. The great whales glorify God with their great majesty and power.
Again, more total bullshit. We have clear fossil evidence that shows the changes in the skeletal structure of the whale's ancestors, as those hind legs became smaller and eventually disappeared inside the body to become vestigial bones. The bones are not anchors for organs. What a lame fabrication. The bones are found exactly where scientists theorized they would be, based on the skeletal progression they have previously observed. Myth my ass. The Bible also says that Jonah lived inside a fucking whale. I bet you wouldn't be too keen to give that idea a try, would you, Mr. Taylor? The prayer's in winner again, of course. It says, "With the whales, dear Father, I glorify you for your work of creation and for my salvation in Jesus Christ." I'm glorifying God with whales? What? Hey. Makes no sense whatsoever. And what does Jesus have to do with whales? It was Jonah in the whale, not Jesus. And this stuff makes less sense the more I read it. Anyway, folks, that was this week's creation moment. Yeah. I swear.
Well, you know where the analogy of the Jesus Jonah whale comes from, right?
Maybe. Clue in.
Well, Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days. Christ died and resurrected in 3 days. That's what that's referring to.
Dumbass stretch of prophecy bullshit kind of thing.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I just get so annoyed by, they're like, oh, there's no evidence. I'm like, there's fucking pictures of it.
Well, it's like what I posted yesterday in regards to Conservapedia. I was working on a piece dealing with dominionism, my favorite topic, and yes. I was looking for something, and this entry in Conservapedia came up as far as defining what dominionism is. And, of course, you know, they call it a conspiracy theory from those of us on the left. And
that post, yes.
Yeah, some non-religious and most those that are involved in the discernment ministries. And basically he goes, no legitimate dictionary. And I'm thinking, what the hell is a legitimate dictionary?
Yes, I saw that. Yeah, what the fuck is a legitimate dictionary? So I guess they wouldn't accept the Urban Dictionary, would be my...
Probably not. But yeah, and for those that don't know what Conservapedia is, think Wikipedia from a conservative Christian viewpoint. And it's like, if you want some good chuckles, or if you want to bang your head off the wall after you're reading, that's the place to go to. But yeah, they're how they rationalize or justify their thinking is very scary.
Yeah, it makes me laugh because every time I do one of these, and I spend 5 minutes looking it up and completely blow their bullshit out of the water. But, you know. Oh, and I got an email, Creation Moments now has a YouTube channel, so I guess I'll have to check that out.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Oh well. So that was our creation silliness for the week. So Mike.
Hi.
Hi. So where did Mike come from, and how did you end up where you are today, as far as being the Liberace of YouTube and such?
Well, it was a cold night on the winter of 1986. I was born into the world, and ever since then, it's been an epic journey of monumental proportions. But my tale
you really are a junior.
I know. I was going to say, I think I have genes that are that old. Sorry, Mike. I had to.
But yes.
I'll just say that's payback.
Yeah. This is true. People won't know, but yes. That's right. Go ahead, Mike.
But yes. I'm 28 years old, born in '86. I was a member of the Salvation Army. That was a fun journey. There's nothing worse than actually being told you are a warrior for God and having to wear a monkey suit while doing it. Not to mention ringing a little bell on Christmas time. That was those two things right there. I also had to sign the Articles of War, which said I couldn't masturbate at the age of 14. There's nothing worse than going through puberty and not being able to jack off.
That would suck. And I mean, I obviously don't jack, but still. Like, man.
I'm not questioning your plumbing in any way, shape, and or form.
No, didn't think you were.
Okay, dumb question, but did that little clause also concern the women as well?
Yes.
Okay. Just curious.
No self-pleasurement of any kind. It's highly frowned upon by the Salvation Army. I mean, not to mention, when I saw in their little doctorate info pamphlets that all gays are going to hell and that they are as evil as the devil himself. That's something that's sort of like a red flag in my book.
Yeah.
Okay. Since you raised that question, if you can answer it, did the Salvation Army actually have a stand that gays should be put to death?
Yes, there's a paragraph in it that say, figuratively, they should be put to death and that they are sentenced to eternal hellfire and brimstone in the pamphlets of the Salvation Army and its doctrinizing literature that it uses.
Charming.
Do you say figuratively, but do you think that they really meant it in a literal sense?
Depends how it would be the personal perspective on the doctrine itself. There are some people that are literalist when it comes to it, but there are a lot of people there, it's individually based. I mean, like I've said before, it's based off of the geographical location, chapter you're in the leadership of your local congregation that sort of dictate how that's perceived.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they did a really good job of hiding that, I think, because, I mean, they're everywhere. We hear about them. We see their stores. We see the bells at Christmas and whatnot, but I didn't know that they were anti-gay until, I would say, within the last 6-7 years. You know, and you, like I say, they're everywhere. You see the commercials, and they did a really good job of hiding that, I think. Was it something that you think they... What's that?
You'd be surprised how much you actually come into contact with that type of mindset when you're going through the whole becoming a soldier and an enlisted member in the Salvation Army itself. I've seen leadership that are completely against homosexuals. I've seen some that are more progressive on that topic. It's completely individually based.
Huh. So did you did you join the Salvation Army, or were you raised with it, or how did that go about?
I was raised with it. My mother went to a Salvation Army church when I turned 9. She started going there, and I went there until the age of 14. So I had quite a few years of where I was going to the local Salvation Army chapter 3 or 4 times a week.
Ew.
I was getting the indoctrinizing practices at a very early age. I was so dedicated to it that I actually wanted to go through the enlistment process at the age of 14. Seeing some of the documentation in that process swayed me away from it. It was, I have to say that indirectly, the Salvation Army played a direct role in my deconversion phase of my interaction with religion.
Wow, that must have been some pretty not so nice things to find out then. Wow.
Well, considering at 14.
Yeah, that whole like can't whack it. That had to no. Wow. I to this day I still don't understand why religion gets so obsessed with that. I really don't. But well, I know it's loosely based on Onan and all of that, but it just I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
There's a T-shirt that has a saying on it saying, "I dedicated my life to religion, and they took my foreskin for it."
Oh, awesome! And to borrow from a point that Dave Foda made one day in a conversation, if we're made in the image of God, then why do we circumcise anyways?
Yes.
God would have a foreskin.
Yeah, that was a good point. It's like, why did he make it and then tell everybody to chop it off? I keep going back to, the early beginnings of Judaism, and I'm like, who thought that was a good idea? Like, I'm assuming it was a man, but why would they think that was a good idea? I don't know. Especially in ancient times where any whiff of an infection was basically a death sentence. I don't know. The crazy shit that religion will make you do, I guess.
Yeah.
So what was your sort of epiphany? Did it take you a while to work your way out of it, Mike, or was it a quicker process?
Well, it was, my whole deconversion phase took about 4 years.
Okay.
I actually went to an Assemblies of God church after the whole being an enlisted member of the Salvation Army, just to sort of get away from my family when it came from the religious standpoint. And
right.
Once I graduated from high school, went to the military. Once I was in Europe, got to see what the world was really like, I came out as an atheist.
Yeah. So, tell me exactly what an enlisted person in the Salvation Army is. I kind of think I know, but I don't know the details really.
Let's put it this way. I had to show up every Sunday in a monkey suit. I hate ties. That was probably something else that sort of helped with the whole me getting away from them. But having to dress up in a monkey suit, that makes it to where they think they're military or a militant branch of God's army. Which, I'm sorry, I was a pacifist growing up. So the whole idea of being the militant arm of the Lord really didn't swing well with me.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. How did you kind of reconcile that with going in the actual military later then?
Well, I was a human resource specialist. I was a paper pusher. When I did actually deploy, I was a FOBIT. I stayed on the base the whole time, didn't really do anything, and sort of went from there. I did actually have a lot of stuff on my plate. I did take care of a few things, but I never really had to be in a situation to where I had to shoot someone, so I didn't really have an issue with having to face that. I mean, if it came down to me or them, I'm sorry, but I plan on living as long as possible, so If it's a choice between you and me, I'm going to win out 9 times out of 10 in my own personal perspective.
No, that makes sense. No, that makes a lot more sense then, for sure. So, in the 4 years that you were deconverting, did you spend time? You went to Assemblies of God. Did you try other denominations and things in between, or once you kind of saw the light, was that it?
I actually got to read the Torah and the Quran from cover to cover.
Wow.
In that time, I've read the Bible from cover to cover multiple times. I actually used to be a Bible quizzer when I was attending the Assemblies of God.
Wow.
So I actually did do this informally, competitively, so I do have a little of a base understanding for what the Bible is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did actually get to check into a lot of other religions. My family's Celtic. They come from Wales. I've come to understand my family history from there.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on, Beth? You can just picture me out.
You said they come from Wales. Dub screaming.
Oh, we just did Wales.
I'm sorry, it just struck me as funny.
We're in the British Isles.
Is a Welshman, and they're a people allergic to vowels.
Beth is picturing me out there in a loincloth, just like dancing around a tree right now. That's the image going through her head.
Riding the back of the whale.
Just basically trying to make love to trees. That's what she's thinking of me doing. Right.
Hey, I'm a Scot, so I mean my people are Celts as well, just a little more north. we weren't into mining so much as sheep.
but yes,
you know why they say Scotsmen wear kilts, right?
I don't even want to touch that one.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, Mike.
Because a sheep can hear a zipper at 300 yards.
I knew that's where it was going.
Not even going to touch that one. Not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, we were saying. So, you read the Quran. You definitely better than me, because I have to listen to Paul. I could never read that shit on my own. It's horrendously dry. I don't know how you managed to read that on your own.
I've also read the Kama Sutra, too, if you consider that a religious...
Tantric, yeah. Yeah, but that's a whole other type of spiritual and, religious experience. We have a copy of that around here somewhere too, actually. No, I couldn't read it. I think that's part of my problem with trying to be religious. Like, I've read the Bible, but I couldn't make myself read any of that other shit. Like, even for fun, I tried to read the Book of Mormon, couldn't do that, so now I listen to David Michael. See, thank goodness for those guys, because otherwise I'd never get through it. So, so did you face backlash from your family after deconverting, or was that all right?
Well, see, most of my family, my immediate family, my mother, my grandmother, my siblings knew I was an atheist, but most of my family didn't find out until my mother passed away 4 years ago. And I've got a teabagger in the family. He was actually the leader of the Tea Party movement in Elmira, New York. He was one of the people that went to Glenn Beck's Million Man March in Washington.
Oh, boy.
And when he found out I was an atheist, it created a situation.
I can imagine. Wow.
And then when he found out, when he came across TheNeoAtheist online for the first time.
Oh, boy.
that just raised some flags. I I forgot I had him as a friend on Facebook. Posted one of my first videos from YouTube on my Facebook profile. He came across it and called me when he came across it, and said, "So, who's the neo-atheist, Mike?" It was a conversation. I was grinning from ear to ear, and my face was never redder than that moment. I had a little explaining to do.
You're like,
and you gotta remember, this is a teabagger that basically thinks that the religious right should own this country because the country was originally founded on religion.
Yes.
Not.
Yeah.
With that being the case, I've quoted Thomas Paine, I've quoted Jefferson, I've quoted I've quoted every founding father that I could actually think of, and he basically tried throwing it back at me. Well, you're misinterpreting those quotes. I'm like,
oh,
vey.
That's what those guys in the Yahoo group used to do, because see, they thought they had a live one, because here's this Canadian woman who I didn't know. I'd already been an atheist for something like 17 years at the time, but see, here it's a non-issue, so it's like, yeah, I'm an atheist, whatever. I didn't know squat about evolution or any of that shit, because it didn't matter to me. So they're like, ooh, we have a live one. Look, here's intelligent design and all that shit. But they tried America was founded as a Christian nation. And it's like, it took me all of maybe an hour of research. And I mean, we're talking back in 2005. So I mean, about an hour's worth of research on internet. And I'm like, yeah, but there's this quote and this quote and this quote and this quote and this quote that says otherwise. So what the hell? And then they trotted out David Barton, and that made me laugh. So yeah. I got an education that way just because they thought I was going to be easy pickings, and yeah, no. That's how I learned about evolution, because they wanted me to swallow intelligent design. I was like, pardon?
Well, see, when I do attend school, when I am enrolled in college, I'm a math science major. So the evolution, the science, the math behind evolution is something of a forte. So I can basically break down traits from single-celled organisms to modern multi-celled organisms. So that sort of throws a wrench in their platform there. Not to mention, I've read 3 of the major religious books based off of an Abrahamic perspective. I've probably read it. Not to mention I've been doing this for a little over 5 years now. I've been an outspoken atheist for close to 10 years. So, yeah, there's bound to be a few issues there, but if someone comes at me from my family, if someone wants to sort of discuss this, I was more timid when my mother was still alive. When that red tape sort of lifted, I basically came out with everything. My YouTube channel, my persona itself. Not to mention, I'm for being an argumentative atheist. I mean, I call myself the neo-atheist. So there's just a certain amount of suggested mindsets that sort of go into the persona itself. So I'm ready to sort of go up against anything that comes my way.
Well, it's funny this year at, like as I say, I've been an atheist for 25 years, almost as long as you've been alive, strangely enough. Sorry, I had to. And you know, it's never been a secret. And my family, I've got some religious family members, and many aren't particularly, but it's never just been an issue. Well, this Christmas, at my mother's, I was tired because I'd been up late working on something for the show, and my mother was bugging me, and my aunts and uncles and my cousins are all there, and my cousin was like, "Oh, you're all tired," and my mom's like, "Oh, she's probably working on that atheist internet show," and my cousin, "That what?" I'm like, "Yeah, my atheist internet show," and I mean, my cousin's relatively cool, and then her father comes by, my uncle, and he's like, "Her what?" And my cousin says, "Don't worry, Dad, she's just making fun of religious people like you," because he's a Catholic. And I'm like, okay, maybe I am, but I didn't say that. And then, of course, his wife, my aunt, shows up and was like, "What's this? Oh, she does it." And then, like, she just starts telling everybody, and it was, I mean, it wasn't terrible by any stretch, but I mean, this is my uncle go, "What do you mean she makes fun of us religious people?" I'm like, I didn't say that. And then my aunt was on my case because, as you guys know, I'm a night owl, and I tend to be up until the sun comes up. And my aunt was like bugging me about being a night owl all of a sudden. And it was almost as if she thought that if I suddenly started having a, quote, normal schedule, that I wouldn't have time for atheist activities or something. I don't know, but she's like, "I really wish you would get your schedule to." I said, "You've known me my entire life. When have I ever not been a night owl?" "Well, that's not the point." Yes, it is. So, yeah, that was, I don't even know why my mother would do that. Like, "Oh, she's up doing that atheist TV show." I'm like, Mom, really? That's folks for you. Oh boy. So does that family member still give you grief, Mike?
Haven't talked to him in over a year. He lives right next to my grandmother. He's one of the major reasons I haven't actually visited her in 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
He's been let's just say yes would probably be the best answer to that, and sort of go from there. There are issues that are underlining there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I try to basically keep the peace for the family, at least. And believe me, I mean, whenever I call him, he asks, "So, are you still an atheist?" I'm like,
God.
Are you still a Bible-loving Baptist? Really don't know how to respond to that. Yeah, I am. So how's that Bible doing? Is it still as fictional as the other books?
Yeah, it's like, "Oh, did God save any starving Africans today, huh?" It's like my husband's family is actually quite religious, and his mother and his older sister more so, and at another Christmas to-do, I hadn't even been there for an hour. And I mean, I don't talk about, I don't keep being an atheist a secret. I just don't mention it because it could be an issue. Well, his mother, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other anyway. But I was at their house for not even an hour. And his sister was talking about the recent trip to New York City, and they were talking about having been to Radio City Music Hall, blah. And there was a exhibit there, and she was saying, "Oh, and there was a nativity scene because you don't have to be afraid to be a Christian in the United States, and you don't have to be embarrassed to be a Christian in the United States." I was, "Can't City there." You know, but then on the upside, one of the nieces, she's doing a master's degree in gender studies right now, actually, which is kind of cool. And she and I kind of got talking, and I was like, "Yeah, so I have a YouTube show now." She's like, "Oh, about?" And I'm like, "Atheism?" She's like, "Really?" And she's like, "Shh, don't talk, you know." So the two of us kind of went off in the corner, like, which was kind of fun, but yeah. It's and this is really new to me because, as I say here, it's generally not an issue, and I've never really been around. I used to be the super religious one in my family, so it's kind of freaky, but yeah, you know, it is what it is, I guess. Thankfully, neither one of his religious family members, I mean, his mother can't even remember to send email unless she calls me first, so highly unlikely they're going to find me. Hi.
You already got 1 point against you because you are you are a ginger, so...
Yes, exactly, and that's my mother's fault because so is she. So nah. Yeah.
I blame the Irish. I blame the Irish.
Well, it's funny because I use the Irish spelling of my name, but we're actually my dad's side Scotch, and well, mother's side is 100% limey, but you know.
Well, that's because you're drinking Scotch when you're trying to spell it, and that just automatically taps into a part of the brain that's Irish because whenever you're drunk, let's face it, everybody's Irish when they're drunk. I mean, look at St. Patty's Day, great example, Exhibit A.
Yeah, I'm Irish when I'm not drunk.
There you go.
I ain't gonna dignify that one with an answer. Not gonna. I'm officially bowing out of this conversation because of how tempting that one really is.
Well, to my credit, I actually about 20 years ago, I was actually picked on by Russell Peters at a comedy show because I was Scottish. So there you go.
You ever get picked on by someone for your last name being Phelps?
No, but I could see how that would work. Be like, do you carry one of them signs around?
Oh, I didn't even think of that aspect of it either. Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah.
I was thinking Michael Phelps, the swimmer. Duh. Oh,
nope.
Wow.
I get jokes from both sides of the fence. I actually, when I was in the military, I used to carry around a rainbow version of the God Hates Fags. I used to carry around a God Hates Ignorance. Little wallet-sized cards. So it's pretty interesting.
You know, it'd be fun, you know, if you ever had the opportunity to crash one of their protests and be like, hey, stop, like, smearing my name, you bastards.
I can neither confirm nor deny that I've been there or done that.
Aha! I almost had a chance to tangle with them. In 2010, my former father-in-law passed away in Georgia, and they were having a service in Virginia as well, which I flew down for. And the church that they were having the memorial at, it was a late morning or early afternoon service, something like that. And in the morning, there had been another funeral at the same church of a military person, and of course the Westboro twits were there, and I found out they were going to be there, but it was going to be at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I would have had to have gotten up like super early and convinced someone to drive me over there and whatnot. So I didn't actually avail myself of the opportunity, although it was very tempting, but I also thought, kind of tacky for me to do at my father-in-law's funeral too, so I left it, but it was tempting, definitely.
See, one of the things that I actually get to do, since I live only 4 hours from New York City, I get to head down there whenever I hear about one of these things, and I get to sort of go from there. I've tussled with Scientologists. I've tussled with God Hates Fags, Westboro Baptists. I've tussled with the Mormons. I've got a vast array in my arsenal. Let's put it that way.
I had the J-Dubs come by in the summer. And I was very nice, actually, because it was a couple of young ladies who I think were barely 20. So I didn't want to go all militant on them. But we don't get the opportunities up here. Like, you know, I am very, very grateful that we don't have, you know, the abortion picketers here, because abortion is not, we actually don't have any kind of law about abortion here, and abortion is actually funded by the government medical plan. So it's a not, I mean, the hospital where it's provided in town here, when you drive by, there's usually like 2 or 3 scraggly looking people with a sign there, but I mean, it's everybody just kind of gives them the finger when they drive by, and that's it. But if I almost wish we had that here, because I would love to volunteer as like an escort for that. I would say that. Like, they might even stop, protesting if I was an escort. I don't know. That shit just gets me riled up, I tell you.
Mike, now you said, like, being 4 hours from New York City that I'm going to use the word demonstrate just for lack of a better word. What fuels you to do that? I mean, what exactly...
That's
I won't say what's your... Not so much agenda, but what, on a personal level, what are you trying to accomplish, or what do you think you can accomplish?
Evil triumphs when ignorance prevails.
Excellent. I like that. Yeah, and I mean...
That's basically the driving force behind that type of mindset. How can I actually say that I stand against something? How can I actually say that it is something that I'm not going to allow to exist unless I'm willing to put my own life on the line and do the footwork against those types of ideas that help spawn ignorance from ignorance. Ignorance wins when you give it the foothold to exist.
I like that. And that's kind of why I'm doing this. I mean, here, like I keep saying here, we don't really have much of a fight here because we're just, I don't know, it's a Canadian thing.
But you got to consider, though, too, Deb, being up in Canada, because it's not yet an issue. But when you have jackwads like Peter LaBarbiera,
yeah, and we have
trying to bring his crap up there.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing. They're exporting their hatred to other countries. And Wade and Beeson at Truth Wins Out had I think I posted it a week or so ago. It's a 10-point plan that the Reich has to hijack other nations because it's not working here. So, I mean, that's why we're seeing the bullshit over in Uganda. That's why they're in Russia. Putin is basically Scott Lively et al. Are part of his inner circle over there. That's why they're driving. So, yeah, it's going to come to Canada. It might take a while, and hopefully you guys are a lot smarter than we are in that regard.
If I'm around for that, they better watch out, because, I mean, and we have a kind of sense of apathy here. I mean, even at our last meetup, there was a guy there who was kind of saying, well, I don't know why we bother, I don't really care about being an atheist so much anymore. I was like, dude, no, stop. Just no. You have to. And that's the kind of apathy that I want to fight against, because it's so easy. I mean, I'm guilty of it for years and years. I was like, I'm an atheist, whatever, and went on with my life. And I could easily do that because it's not terribly impactful here. But, while watching CNN did it for me back in 2005. I don't even remember what the hell was going on back then. I was just like, that's a lot of religious horse shit on that station. What the hell? So, yeah.
Mike, do you see a lot of apathy, like how Deb was describing it, with people that you've come in contact with, or do you think that, at least in your circle that you know, is that not an issue?
Well, I think the demographic in which we're talking to is completely different. I mean, look at how liberal New York State is. Look at how, I mean, think about it. New York State was one of the first states, it was the first state to legalize gay marriage. That being the case, there's a lot of things that, the dynamic of liberal-minded individuals that exist in my state is a completely different spectrum than what you're seeing in the area Deb's in. With that being the case, I would say that there are crazies on both sides of the fence that you're going to run into. I mean, if you're going to a demonstration, if you're going to something to protest against it, you're going to run into some level of crazy or the extremists of that cause. It's bound to happen. I mean, who else is going to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go protest something if they're not an extremist for the topic they're going to go protest for?
Yeah, and I mean those people. I mean, last time I drove by that hospital that provides abortion, there was like a little old lady standing out in the rain with this bedraggled sign, and it's like, you got to think, how fundy does she have to be to stand out there by herself in the rain with the stupid sign while people are driving by giving her the finger all day? So,
and that's the thing with the first real big right to life rally they had in Buffalo. I mean, I lived right across from the Armory on Connecticut Street, which is where they took the protesters that were detained to hold them, because really they didn't know how many to expect. This was when Randall Terry was big in the movement, although he still is, but he's a little he's not in charge anymore. And I remember sitting out on my front porch. I had my heaviest death metal I could find at the time. I don't remember what it was. I was sitting on my porch blasting it, watching the little picketers protesting the fact that their little cohorts were, quote, in jail. And one of my friends who happened to be a Buffalo cop at the time was on that detail. And she came over to me and she's like, can you at least turn the music off? She goes, I don't want to have to arrest you. It was fun. That was of my active.
I kind of wish I could experience. I'm thankful that we don't get that level of ridiculousness here, but in a way, I kind of wish I could go to a good protest like that. Maybe someday. Yeah. So, Mike, I know you have an obligation shortly. So, anything you want to add, or you can do some plug-in and stuff before you have to run away?
Well, funny story about the me running away shtick. It seems that meeting sort of fell through, so you've got me. I'm going to have to punish you with having me until you end.
All right.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for the selfless, shameless plug of The Age of Reason being on at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we just recently introduced a live chat feature here on YouTube. Or I could plug my own personal YouTube channel, which is the TheNeoAtheist X. Into the little YouTube search engine. Or you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, or any social media-based spectrum. We also have a plethora of shows here on SecularTv. I mean, I can go into selfless plugs for the next half an hour if you want me to.
Well, how about we do the logical fallacy, and then we can come back and see what else we can plug. How's that sound?
I am all for that. That's a great idea.
All right. And now it's time for logical fallacies for dummies. This week on Logical Fallacies for Dummies, I'm going to tackle argument from celebrity. What does that mean? Well, it's when a famous person tries to convince you that what they're saying is true based merely on the fact that they are famous. Where is that an issue? Well, what's the chances that a famous person actually knows about what it is they're trying to convince you of? Famous people are famous for a lot of reasons, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have direct knowledge of what they're speaking of. They are advocates for things that someone else may have convinced them of, or they may have read something. They may just be endorsing something because they're being paid to endorse it. But that doesn't mean that what they're saying is indeed true. We always have to be critical and examine these claims for ourselves. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't do that. They look at what a famous person is telling them, and because they may like that person, they may feel that they have a personal relationship with that person because they've watched them or listened to them for years and years, that person is trustworthy. And while that famous as a person, that doesn't mean that everything they say is true. This kind of fallacy has impacted society a lot over the years. I'd like to play you some examples of argument from celebrity that have been in the news over the last few years, and I think all of you will probably recognize when you hear them. Let's listen.
He doesn't have a birth certificate, or he hasn't shown it. He has what's called a certificate of live birth. That is something that's easy to get. When you want a birth certificate, it's very hard to get.
But it's considered the equivalent. And in the
it's not the equivalent.
In the state of Hawaii, they said they have seen this document. It is evidence that he was born in the United States. That's good enough for them. Scholars have looked at it.
A birth certificate is not even close. A certificate of live birth is not even signed by anybody. I saw his. I read it very carefully. Doesn't have a serial number, doesn't have a signature. There's not even a signature.
Do you believe he's lying?
I'm starting to think that he was not born here.
Do you believe he's lying, Donald? Come on, just
Meredith, he spent $2 million in legal fees trying to get away from this issue. And if he weren't lying, why wouldn't he just solve it? And I wish he would, because if he doesn't, it's one of the greatest scams in the history of politics and in the history period. You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country. He may not have been born in this country. And I'll tell you what, 3 weeks ago I thought he was born in this country. Right now I have some real doubts.
Every criticism of the doctrine of Islam gets conflated with bigotry toward Muslims as people.
Right.
And that is it's intellectually ridiculous. It gets
so hold on, are you the person who understands the officially codified doctrine of Islam? You're the interpreter of that, so you can say, well, this is...
I'm actually well educated on this topic.
I'm asking you. So you're saying, if I criticize you're saying that Islamophobia is not a real thing. That if you're critical of something...
Well, it's not a real thing when we do it.
Right.
Well, no, it really is. I'm not denying that certain people are bigoted against Muslims as people. And that's a problem.
Big of you.
But
why are you so hostile about this?
It's gross. It's racist.
It's not. But it's so not.
It's like saying those you're a shifty Jew.
You're not listening to what we are saying.
You guys are saying if you want to be liberals, believe in liberal principles, like freedom of speech, like we are endowed by our forefathers with an inalienable rights, like all men are created.
No, Ben, we have to be able to criticize bad ideas. And
of course we do. No liberal doesn't want to criticize bad ideas.
But Islam is the mother lode of bad ideas.
Jeez.
Damn, is he cute. You shared his story before. Give us a little history of Evan and autism.
Sure. Evan was diagnosed with autism just before the age of 3. He started having seizures, was what made me need to look for more answers. One of the seizures went into cardiac arrest. It's something that we still, have to deal with, but soon after those seizures, he was diagnosed with autism.
What'd you do about it?
Instead of, leaving it as a dead-end, diagnosis, I went online. And I found a community called Defeat Autism Now. And for 12 years, thank God, this community of doctors and scientists who have been healing and treating kids with autism, I believed enough, even though my pediatrician at the time said it's all bull, and followed this treatment, and my son got better. The amazing thing is, what I want people to know, first off, because a lot of things that we're going to talk about as vaccines, is that I'm not, nor is the autism community, anti-vaccine. We're anti-toxin. And we're anti-schedule. But the thing is, the way I treated Evan and the way a lot of these parents are treating their kids is not treating autism. We are treating vaccine injury. And the kids are getting better.
Anti-schedule.
Well, the schedule back in 1983 was 10 shots given. Today there are 36 shots given.
That's too many.
Too many too soon. When I was on the show before, I said, we need an alternate schedule. This is too much. We need to get rid of the toxins. The mercury, which I'm so tired of everyone saying it's been removed. It has not been removed from the shots. We'll get into that later more. Aluminum, ether, antifreeze. These are toxic ingredients in shots that need to be removed.
So here we first have Donald Trump from about 3 years ago, and he's complaining that he believes Obama has faked his birth certificate and that he is all up in Obama having not been born in the United States. So what Trump is doing here is throwing his celebrity and his status as a billionaire behind his idea that Obama is not eligible to be the president, which at this point is kind of lame because he's already been the president for a term. But anyway, so Trump is trying to get us to doubt the veracity of the president's birth certificate because, well, he's Donald Trump and he should know. But Donald Trump is a developer. He's a real estate magnate. He knows, as far as we know, nothing about how the government of Hawaii registered births back in the year that Obama was born. We don't know that he knows anything about what legal documents should or shouldn't look like as far as what's acceptable to become a president or what the state of Hawaii would accept as a birth certificate. And the interviewer, she even says, well, that was good enough for them. Who are you to say? And he's going on about, well, he's investigated and he thinks that this is all false. Well, there's no reason why we should believe Donald because, like I said, he's a real estate guru. He's not a public notary. And next we have the famous Ben Affleck clip from a couple of months ago. Here, Ben is claiming that criticizing Islam is gross and racist. And of course, famously, he says to Sam Harris, who are you to say, are you the one that knows about Islam? Hello, Ben Affleck's not a Muslim either, so why would he know any different? The sad thing is that Ben Affleck is more widely appealing than, say, Sam Harris or Bill Maher because he's not famous merely because of his politics or religious beliefs or lack thereof. He's an actor. And a lot more people are going to be familiar with him and his work. And like I said at the beginning of the segment, that familiarity unfortunately lends people to give credence to what people say, whether that person deserves that deference or not. Ben Affleck's an actor. He's not even a theologian. He, for all we know, knows absolutely nothing about Islam, whereas Sam Harris has actually studied the doctrine and studied the Quran and knows what the hell he's talking about. Ben Affleck, not so much. As I heard Ali Rizvi say in his speech a couple of months ago, it's become an afflectation. Then we have the mother lode of all appeal to celebrity fallacies, Jenny McCarthy. We've probably all heard about her and her ridiculous crusade against vaccinations and her claim that vaccinations cause autism, which of course is utter bullshit. It's been debunked over and over and over again, yet she wants to cling to the woo and claim that she knows more than actual doctors. And if you listen to her, she even says, my pediatrician said it was all bunk, but I didn't listen. Okay, pediatricians are not infallible, but chances are they're going to know a hell of a lot more than an actress. Yes, Jenny McCarthy is an actress. She is not a doctor. She is not even a nurse. She's not even an EMS person. She knows nothing about medicine. She said, I went online and talked to community. She claims that the community had scientists and doctors in them, but we don't know that. It's a bunch of people on the internet she talked to. That's like me going to a chat room, somebody saying, oh, I'm a doctor and I say this. How the hell do I know that's a doctor? But unfortunately, Jenny McCarthy, because of her girl next door look and appeal, has convinced millions of people with her celebrity that vaccinations can and do cause autism. And if you listen, part of the clip that I left in there specifically had her talking about her son experiencing seizures and a cardiac arrest before he was diagnosed with autism. We don't know a lot about autism or necessarily what causes it. There's no bloody way that we can say for sure that his earlier medical complications did not have something to do with him being autistic later in life. We just don't know. To say that, oh, it was vaccinations? Oh, don't get me going with the stupid. But as we all know, she's managed to influence millions of people, and because of this, people have actually died from not getting vaccinated. Children. There's been the outbreak of measles at Disney World lately. It's ridiculous. They're putting millions of people at risk because of unfounded, ridiculous claims, and her celebrity is a big part of the problem. So we've learned, in some cases the hard way, that just because someone is famous, just because we see them as a friendly face, or they have a warm personality that we like their work, doesn't mean they know a goddamn thing about what they're talking about. If a celebrity says something, the first thing you want to do is look that shit up, do some research, find out if there's some actual, empirical evidence, scientific experimentation, something actually concrete behind their words before we go ahead and decide, it's a good idea to maybe not vaccinate my children. Ugh, some people. So anyway, that is this week's Logical Fallacy for Dummies. Yeah, some favorites there. Yeah.
I don't know too much about the whole Ben Affleck with the Islam stuff. I didn't get into that much, but, well, I mean, pretty much everybody knows the Jenny McCarthy BS, and, of course, Trumpmeister. But, yeah. Good choices on that one.
Thank you. Well, the Ben Affleck one is one of my personal favorites, and that was, I told Paul to watch out for that one, too. He'll enjoy that. It's like, here's Affleck going on about, well, are you the guy that knows about Islam, blah, blah, blah. You're an actor.
One thing in that clip that caught my ear, and I'm not sure who said it, they said that Islamophobia is the same as racism.
That was Ben Affleck.
Okay, there's a problem. Islam is not a race.
Exactly. That's the major issue from that, is number one, him trying to say that, Sam Harris didn't know what he was talking about when neither did Ben Affleck. And the fact that he's like, well, that's gross and racist. No. No, it's not.
Yeah, and I think... Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it can't be racist. It's not a race. It's a fucking belief.
Exactly. That was the biggest issue with what Affleck said, but there was a school of people who sided with him and were like, yeah, way to stand up for religious freedom. Like, no, it's not. Ugh. Like, if I could smack that man upside the head, I would. Him, you know what? Let's put him and Jenny McCarthy in a room with a bunch of unvaccinated children and see how that goes.
Yeah. And that's the thing with the vaccine, because I know when I got home from work, I was going through my news feed real quick, and I thought I saw a headline that said that there now have been confirmed cases in Arizona. Well, guess what just happened in Arizona?
What?
2 days. Well, Super Bowl.
Oh, right. Oh, jeez.
But as I said, I was scrolling, I was looking for something else, and I happened to see, I was trying to find it, but I'm not finding it at the moment.
The thing that got me, too, was there was a story I came across a few days ago, and something that I hadn't thought about until I read this, but there are people and children who, because of other health issues like leukemia, cannot get vaccinated, and they rely on everyone else having their vaccinations.
Yeah, it's called herd immunity, and basically what it is you have, well, actually there's a father who is asking the parents at his child's school to please, if your kids are not vaccinated, keep them home, or to get them vaccinated, because his son, I think it was his son, could not be vaccinated because he just finished chemo. So he has no immune system.
That's the story I came across.
Yeah, and the thing, what's sad about it, and this is where my understanding of part of the anti-vax movement is, they deny the whole herd immunity concept. Their idea is, well, they flip it. If you're vaccinated, why should you worry? See, that tells me that the vaccinations don't work. So they take the herd immunity and they flip the argument to make it, well, and that's why they say. And the funny thing about going back to Jenny McCarthy's clip, she said that she mentioned mercury in the vaccines. Well, mercury has not been in vaccines, if I remember correctly, since 2002.
Yeah, and that clip was from 2006, I believe.
Yes, it was. I can actually jump in here for a second, if you wouldn't mind. I'm actually high-functioning autistic myself.
Really?
I actually was diagnosed with, yes, I am. I was actually diagnosed with the age of 13. So... I've actually been keeping up on this ardently.
I bet.
since I've been diagnosed with it myself. As far as the neurological abnormality and the correlation between seizures, there have been genetic components found within epilepsy, and to be similar with the neurological function of high-functioning autism. I mean, my mother had epilepsy herself. She had 9 types of seizures, stretching from grand mal to petit mal, different stages, different phases of the type of seizures she had. But there's no direct correlation from what she was actually saying. Not to mention, mercury hasn't been in it for a while. And that clip itself is actually from 2006. So, McCarthy, I mean, come on, we're talking about a news correspondent for Fox. Give her as much validity, give her as much merit as the network in which she works for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and the sad thing is, she said that her son got better. Okay, my nephew is, I won't say he's a high functioning, he's maybe a step below that. Okay, he has not gotten better, but he has learned how to deal.
It's it's the introductions of the coping mechanisms. If you can actually put in place coping mechanisms that work from individual to individual, it can raise them up on the autistic spectrum itself.
Yeah.
Because there's things which you can use to interact and relate to the child itself. Mechanisms are always the physical science, which sort of helped take hold to my secular-minded perspective. With that being the case, go ahead.
I think what really annoys me about McCarthy is, you know, I have my nephew who, you know, is on the spectrum, but my best friend, well, I don't say best friend, but a good friend of mine, her son is fully autistic. I mean, he is barely functioning. He cannot vocalize. He has, you know, your classic, the rocking, the outbursts, etc. He now has a guide dog, which does help. And she is a nurse, okay? So, and she has tried everything within reason. And he has not gotten any better. So, you know, and she point blank will say, it's not something you get better with. Especially, you know, in Kyle's case. You know, I mean, he's not going to get any better. I mean, he will be dependent on his parents, you know, and after that, I don't know, I mean, they're my age, so, I mean, but, and it's a shame because, you know, there were reports, I'm trying to think what year it was it 2010, where people were saying that her son probably did not have autism, but had what's called Landau-Kleffner syndrome.
Right.
Which I don't. It's a neurological disorder, and it has the speech impairment, and there is some neurological damage.
It has neurological degeneration that's a part of it. The rate at which neurological abnormalities function with that syndrome is completely different. I mean, it's not uncommon for it to be misdiagnosed as autism, but it is something that does have neurological function impaired at the cerebral level. It's actually I want to say it's front motor processing cortex is where that disease that you just outlined shows most of its physical features, but it does actually impair the person from interacting from a socialistic aspect, from a physical limitation too. It does actually function there too. I mean, it exists in the frontal region of the lobe itself, so anything that does hold most of its neurological abnormality there is going to actually impair have physical ramifications, speech development, and just the development from an overall psychological standpoint for the individual itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know coming from the other side, it's been said that no, he does not have it. So there's a debate. I mean, she's come out and said, I know when the original article came out about the Landau Kleffner is that she denies that she ever said that, but I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, and I think you hit on a really good point when you talked about the seizure aspect prior to this diagnosis. And
that really struck out for me when she was talking about, well, he started out having seizures and he, cardiac arrest and this and that. And I'm like, then how could you just jump into, oh, it has to be vaccinations? Like,
and that's the danger of pseudoscience.
Judy McCarthy's sort of trying to go in the direction of that is that mercury poisoning, while at such a young age, is what plays a precedent with it. I've been taking on this this battle since I first started on YouTube. My first YouTube channel was actually a autism awareness channel. I was basically helping people identify and coordinate their own coping mechs and helping advise them from there. So, that being the case, they're trying to play the mercury poisoning angle of it, and it's something that is a completely... It doesn't hold any precedence because mercury hasn't been used in the keeping it cool for years. It's been close to a decade since X. Not to mention, when you're actually talking about vaccinations, if you're going to say that's something that brings on autistic tendencies, for one, you have no sound studies that actually back up that claim. You're trying to give testament from a place of authority when you have no place in which you're coming from. If you can't actually back up your position with sound statistical data, I'm sorry, but you are the idiots that you claim to be. Well,
the fact that you say statistical data, there's a meme, and it's a couple different variations I've seen where they've, the one I can remember off the top of my head is they're showing the increase in autism diagnoses or cases that correlates.
I know the
correlates to the increase in organic food.
Yep.
I know what you're talking about right now. That study actually a misrepresentation because obviously autistic tendencies are going to actually be on, or autistic diagnosis are going to be on a rise as our diagnostic strategy and just the technology we're using to diagnose these types of abnormalities.
The point of this mummy was it was basically they were comparing the increase in autism to the increase in the ingestion of organic food.
And just the idiot
the causation versus correlation fallacy is what they were highlighting, because I mean she's trying to say it's the mercury, which we know hasn't been used in 13 years, and that's where it fails. I mean, and then of course they're relying on the Wakefield study, which has been debunked over and over again. Yeah, and that's the dangers of pseudoscience. And just today, Walmart, Target, I can't remember who else, just got busted by the Food and Drug Administration for supplements that they sell. Yeah. None of what they say is in there is in there. So I mean, you got to watch with your science, like you said. If you don't know, look it up. Look for that hardcore science that supports it.
Absolutely, and that's what ticks me off about the whole celebrity thing is you get somebody out there who doesn't know a goddamn thing, and in some cases might even be paid to say something, and people are, oh, well, that's so-and-so, oh, I like their work, I'm just going to believe what they say. It just boggles my mind. It's like there are lots of celebrities that I hold in relatively high esteem, but if some of the, if William Shatner told me to jump off a bridge tomorrow, I'd be like, are you fucking kidding me? unless you've got an anti-grav pad that I can take with me, that's not going to happen. Or a transporter, you know, if you got Scotty standing by, I might think about it, but it just, yeah. So yeah, that was an important one, I think, for people to look at, because even if the celebrity seems like they know something, like Dr. Oz, quote doctor.
I was gonna bring him up.
Because he's using his celebrity and then, you know, saying all this stupid shit about things that he's obviously not looked into. He's like, oh, well, this is a miracle cure. Go take this stuff. But yeah.
Just like both Ben Carson and Mike Huckabee were, for years, I think both of them stopped like maybe 5-6 years ago. That's my next blog post I'll be doing, but they basically were snake oil salesmen.
Yeah.
And Ben Carson should know better. He's pretty highly rated doctor, so yeah.
Well, we're coming up near the end there, so Mike, anything else you want to add before we close out for the evening?
There's just two announcements I have. The Age of Reason, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be talking to Shelley on the next show, and we'll be discussing atheist musicians. And that's we're taking with the next edition of the Age of Reason. We also have on Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Shayra will be hosting the first edition of that, and she will actually be having as her first guest Steve Shives and Venom Fang X, Sean himself. So make sure to tune in to that epic discussion between the three of them.
Fantastic. And of course there's all kinds of other cool stuff on Secular TV that people should go and check out too. Absolutely. Well, and Beth, tell everybody where we can find your blog again.
It's on Blogger, Havoc and Chaos. You can find me on Facebook under Beth A. Hampridge, or you can find me on Twitter at Dune9998.
Excellent. And of course, I have to plug my new show, of course, My Secular Savior. We just released episode 4 this week, so you can find us at mysecularsavior.com. Give us a listen. We're always looking for listener stories. We are starting to have people submit their stories, and we're really excited about that. So give us a listen, see what we're about. If you have something you want to contribute, we're always happy to get messages from listeners, suggestions, send us your story, tell us about music that helped you get through a tough time in life. We'd love to hear it. So that's mysecularsavior.com. And yeah, so Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We had a good time, and great to learn all about Secular TV. And to close out, where do you want to take Secular TV going forward? What's the game plan?
Honestly, just getting the project up and running. We're in the process of developing the website, and I'm Sergeant Randy Bevan, Foxhole Atheist himself. I may be the pretty face behind this project, but Randy is honestly the brains. We work hand in hand. I would not be able to do this without our leadership team. D. Wayne, Albany Rose, Sydney Wilson, Randy Bevan, and John Gleason. Those other individuals right there help me every step of the way. They are the reason that Secular TV is, and with that being the case, I just want to say, Randy, if you're watching this, your beard is epic, and you have the most amazing blue eyes in the world, and they're complete. You have your screen is black and white. So one of these days, we're just going to airtime for your blue eyes. That's going to be my next. That's my next mission. Just an hour staring into Randy Bevan's eyes.
The beard is pretty epic too, I have to say. Epic beer. You could do like the spinning background behind, do like his head with the Svengali spinning background. For, look into my eyes. And
I'm sure he would love
that. And I'll just say, watch secular TV. Oh,
when we have the there's Hypnotoad, and then there's Hypno Randy. We're going to make Hypno Randy the next thing from Secular TV.
Actually, that would be a pretty good commercial, just Randy's head, watch secular TV. With the beard.
Singing in a monotone voice going for
Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, join us next week. Next week is going to be the Canadian invasion, So if you want to find out what us Canucks are up to up here in the Great White North, tune in next week, and I'm going to have a panel of Canucks up here with some space heaters and Tim Hortons and maybe a couple of hockey sticks. I don't know. We'll see what we can rustle up. So next week, same time, same awesome station called Secular TV. And to close out the show, I will leave you with Dave Foda's Humanist Creed.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.